lost all control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Welcome, everybody, to the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Hope you guys are having a great night. Thanks so much for being here. I know there's not very many here yet, but hopefully people will keep streaming in because, I don't know, it seems like a shame to just, not have many people listening. Hope you guys had a great day, those of you that are here and those of you that will continue to come in as the show goes on. It's almost Friday, so it's hard to go wrong, I think. The day was good here. We got a great podcast recorded for tomorrow. It's going to be a pretty cool episode. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it, and a lot of information is being brought to the show as well through the podcast. And if you're not already checking out our podcast, please do so, because these are not the same as YouTube. Podcast is not the same as YouTube. YouTube is not the same as podcasts, although sometimes people use those terms interchangeably, but podcasting is traditionally and most often it is audio format only. And in our case, it definitely is audio format. It's not video at all, so there's no graphical representations as the show goes. It is literally something you download on Pandora, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, or any number of other, Google Play, etc., 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 etc. So just go to your favorite podcast player and search for the Paranormal Portal, and you can certainly check out our 120 plus episodes that are available up there. Hopefully you'll find some shows that you really love, and if not, hopefully you'll find things that you at least like. There's quite a bit of shows over there, and again, 90+% of them are absolutely brand new. So I hope you guys will make that journey over there if you haven't already. And if you like the podcast and you like what you're hearing, head over to iTunes and leave us a good review, because that goes a long way into getting our show recommended for other people to hear it. So that's always important, of course, because all these shows rely on people, tuning in and downloading. So it's a big part of the whole deal. And for this stream as well, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. Please like the stream if you wouldn't mind, because it helps a bunch to get our streams recommended by the YouTube algorithm, and maybe more people will see them. So that's always a great thing as well. So the phone lines will be open throughout the duration of our show tonight. If you want to call in and share something paranormal that happened to you, I'd love to hear about it. 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. So those are your options. Otherwise, if you don't want to call in, that kind of freaks you out, just email us at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. So paranormalportalradio@gmail.com is the email addresses. So those are the ways you can get in touch with us. Thanks, Mogs, for posting the phone number. I appreciate it. But if you're later in the show, you think, God, what was that number? It's right up here, right above my hand. You can see it right there. So if you want to call in, and then just look above me, right under the words Paranormal Portal on your screen, and the phone number is there. So let us know. Love to hear from you guys. But I hope you all are ready, because it's time for bed.
Paranormal. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0. 0.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we are officially underway here on the Paranormal Portal. I'm ready to entertain you as well as I know how and keep you here for as long as you'll stay. Hopefully, you'll stay for the whole run. That's always a great time. Lots of different stories to go over tonight. Great to see everybody here. Who is here? Let's find out. We got Annie M, Brian Gaska. How you doing, Brian and Annie? Somebody just disappeared. There was a name that just disappeared, so I didn't get it. Cha-Cha's here, Chris Jarvis, Elaine Clifford, I am Pam, John G, Justin Goodearth, Lindsay Bay, M Cat's in here, Moog's in here, Nessie's here, I'm here, Rachel gets it right, Suzanne Lucero O'Brien is here, and Tinker. How you doing, Tinker? Good to see you. Some other names came in. John G came in. I am Pam is here. Barry came in. I don't know if I said Barry before, but I don't know. It keeps changing pretty drastically. So I'm doing my best to shout them out as I can see who just came in, but all of a sudden I just get a shift. Oh, it looks like Nessie came in. Good to see you, Nessie. All right. So if I haven't said your name, then I apologize, but welcome to everybody. Hello, Kathy. Good to see you. And it's great to see all of you. Thanks so much for being here. And I guess I can get to the stories. Again, call in if you got something to share. Phone number's up here. So, or I don't know if I went too far. I'm not looking at my reference monitor, but it's up there somewhere. So I'm doing my best Vanna White. All right, that was all I got. So I'm not really a Vanna White. So, all right. So the first story tonight is coming from the state of Maryland, or Maryland, as some people call it, but could be Maryland. Looks like Maryland. I gotta quit smacking my lips like that. I do that way too much. Sorry about that, guys. If you're listening with headphones, this probably sounds pretty brutal. Just trying to keep the machine lubricated, so. All right, when I was 14, I changed bedrooms and now occupy the room that my grandmother had used to stay before my parents' divorce, and she moved out with my dad. She never spoke of anything strange back then. We weren't quite friendly, but I often wake up paralyzed and seeing ghostly figures at the end of my bed. I have for quite some time now, and that there was a presence, I have felt, rather, for quite some time now, that there was a presence in the house. But as of late, I feel differently, like a different energy. Like there is now more than one. And lately, they've been bothering me and only me. One morning, I was awoke by the feeling of something pulling my arm and pulling me off the bed. I felt like it was a child or perhaps a small being. It even made some weird noise in my ear, but when I tried to move my body or call my mom, I couldn't. But I was soon out of this trance and was able to get up and out. Another time I was lying in bed and felt something pull my sheets a few times. I was, of course, alone, but I tried my best to ignore it and not feed it my fear. But most recently, my mom and I were enjoying a football game on TV in the basement, and I had for some reason gone upstairs to find something, and I can't quite remember what, but I remember sitting on my bed looking at my phone, and then I heard what sounded like someone opening my mom's mirror door that was on her dresser. Sorry. Cat hair. It had wind chimes on it that have never made a sound, even if the fan was blowing in its direction. And I called out to ask if my mom had come up, but I soon heard her celebrating a touchdown in the basement. So as I got up to walk back downstairs, I heard what sounded like footsteps in my mom's room. Well, I chose to ignore it and return to the game. I asked my mom if she came up, even though I knew she didn't, and she only confirmed what I had thought, that she was downstairs the whole time. Well, I shrugged it off and went back about my night. And my mom says she hears things all the time, and my father heard noises when he was there, but neither of them knew why I am their choice when it comes to harassing and freaking me out. I'm not sure if they want to scare me like they have been doing, for I have only asked a question aloud once after being contacted by one. I believe it made a noise in my room, so I asked, "What do you want?" And heard no response, so I went on about my business. There was another time when I was sitting at my desk using my computer and I felt extremely cold air drift into my room and settle on my right arm, closest to the door. And it was a hot summer day, and the air conditioner was broken, so I know it wasn't the air. And my window was down. The screen has holes in it, and I don't want the bugs getting in. So my fan was off because it was covered in dust and I didn't want it circulating through the room. But I felt it was there, so I looked over my shoulder and I saw nothing. For about 10 minutes it stood there as if it were checking me out, or checking out the internet with me as well. And I just sort of chuckled to myself, and eventually I felt the cold air exit my room, and I shook my head and, as usual, went about my business. I still feel a strong presence in the hallway where I mentioned I saw a ghost when I was younger, and it's sometimes so overbearing that I find myself running to my bedroom. On other nights, it's just a light presence, and sometimes it's just not there at all. There was about 3 random months that I didn't feel it there, but that was funny. What was funny was that when I went off to college, I started to feel a presence again. This time in my best friend's apartment where I spent a lot of time, things began to happen, like radios coming on at random times and playing music, and a roommate's poster would randomly fall, and sometimes the TVs would change volume. And we even began to hear voices that weren't the voices of the characters on the TV talking low, but over the original audio. I'd go home on breaks and not feel anything, and it wasn't until a month after I returned home for an unexpected stay that I felt its presence again. I don't know what they want, but I've considered taking a voice recorder home to next time I go, just to see what I'll find, and I hope to find that they want what they want, but then again, I'd rather not hear something to freak me out while I have to live there. So why do they bother me so much? I just think this person must be a sensitive or have some latent psychic abilities. It doesn't seem like they're aware of any abilities, but generally, if spirits harass one person, it's usually because they feel that that person can most likely connect with them. I'm just, spitballing this as I go, but I think that that's oftentimes why there'll be one person who seems to have all the activity happen to them. Well, there's something about that person. Perhaps they're psychic, or they may not even know it, but they may have just a much higher energy level for whatever reason, and whether that's psychically tuned energy or whatever. But I think that that's generally why one person gets singled out, is they just have abilities, and for some reason spirits seem to really be able to tell who has the abilities, and they just really go after them. And it's not negative usually. It's just, I think they just want to connect. They want to tell whatever it is they have to say, or share whatever it is they want shared. So the only place that they're able to do that is with these people who can receive those messages most likely. So I don't know. That would be my guess in this story, but it's anybody's guess, really. I mean, it's all speculation, but that's my speculation for whatever that's worth. But a good story. And the next one is Maryland again. And it says, in the morning before school, I'd sit straight up and mechanically climb out of bed. Wait a minute, I read this one. This was last night. Sorry. I read that one last night. Yeah, I did it again. Okay? Quit poking fun of me. I do that about once a night. I'll leave some tab open and forget it's a tab that I finished, and then I'll actually read it again. But they say that sometimes the best way to learn is to, have repetition. So maybe that makes the ghost stories stick a little better when I reread them. I don't know. It's just a thought. Let's pull up some new ones for you, because you guys deserve a whole fresh batch. And that's what I'm going to bring you. All right. So the first one tonight, or the next one tonight, rather, is from Illinois. Again, with that S that makes no noise. Which is actually funny enough, the way you'd pronounce the last part of that word, Illinois. I've heard of ghosts, spirits, and other paranormal activities before. I even went through hauntings as well in my life. Nothing was like this. I was at home on a Sunday afternoon at about 2:30 p.m. I was in my house because I decided to take a short rest. I slept for 2.5 hours, making it 5 o'clock. When my eyes opened, I couldn't move. I thought this was an every once in a while thing because this usually happens, seeing black anomalies in my room, and I noticed that I was lying flat on my bed, faced up, and could hear my TV, but the sounds started to fade, and it sounded like I was moving farther from it. And on the left side of my room, where the TV is, started to darken into a black void as I heard a faint voice of a child telling me to stop moving. Well, I couldn't sleep, so I struggled to get up, and it felt like I was detaching my soul from my body while still lying down somehow. And I had an ominous feeling as if I were being watched as I got up, or the feeling of my own soul being pulled out of my immobile body. Yet I was getting up at the same time. The boy's voice grew louder as he told me not to move, as if he alerted danger. Well, I still tried to get up, but then I heard a distorted voice yelling freeze at me. It was almost like someone was roaring that word angrily at me for not listening to the child earlier, or as if I was being arrested. And then I was forcefully shoved back inside my body. I had sore feelings in my chest, which is where I was placed back in my body. Afterwards, I could move and run into the living room where my parents were. Well, I never spoke of this to anyone until now because I think it might happen again. And on the other hand, I still wonder what might have happened if I had come out of my body. I don't know. That's one of those that probably better not to find out. I can only assume that there was some reason that they should not get out of the body. Maybe if this person had successfully made it out of their body, they would not have made it back in for whatever reason. And I don't pretend to know for sure, but it seems like maybe the voice of the guides was coming through like, get back in there. Don't do it. Don't do it. So just a thought, but yeah, that's kind of creepy. Never heard that angle on the whole, sleep paralysis and old hag phenomena. That one's new. So this one's coming out of California, and it's pretty lengthy. This is a pretty long one, so let's see what's going on in California back in 2008 when the story was written. It said it's really amazing how you can pick a place to live, and it turns out to be a really bad idea. When we bought our land in Hawaii, we decided to keep our residence in California. The best option for us was to rent it out, but the only problem with renting out your house, when you want to go back to visit family and friends, someone else has taken over your home, and you have no place to stay. And this is when my mother-in-law stepped in. She offered us an empty condo to use, and we were thrilled to have a place to go. And I didn't really miss our old house anyway. The rental income was helping us to pay our mortgage in Hawaii. The condo we were offered was in a strange area. Have you ever driven into an area and as soon as you get to a certain point, you say, whoa, I feel kind of weird? Well, this is where it all began, with a feeling like the ground was about to fall away from underneath. I'm not exaggerating. If you could hear the tumble of the trolley and the trains would blow their whistles come sundown, and it was a cacophony of ruckus gone wild. The condo is a cute little place, little bedrooms about the size of a large closet, and a kitchen that feels more like a galley on a small boat. It was built in the 1950s, so it wasn't in the greatest of shape, and it smelled funny as well, kind of like fermenting, rotting fruit. I guess I wasn't too thrilled to move in, but it was free, and you couldn't beat that. 2 highways surrounded the neighborhood, and it was under the flight path, so every few minutes a plane flies over, and the hum of freeway noise, well, that never stops. I was worried that the stimulation would be a bit too much for me to handle, and I tried to tune out some of the visitations. I'll tell you, it wasn't easy. Day in and day out, I was inundated with a nighttime visitor. Not of the physical world, but the spiritual. First night I was there, I had the ghost of an elderly lady dressed in nothing but a dirty nightgown, staring down at me, and I told her to go away and turned over. You see, I have these gifts of being able to ascertain the otherworldly and their antics, and this condo appeared to be crawling with the supernatural. Only it wasn't just the condo. It appeared to be this whole neighborhood was haunted. I tried taking walks around the block, but the dead, they were everywhere. Lots of overdoses, lots of alcohol poisonings. I remember thinking, this area is overrun by the deceased. I was accosted in the shower by a deceased granny who happened to wander by with a chipped coffee cup in her hand. Her scruffy slippers seemed to grip scruffy slippers seemed to grip her attention. I don't even know what that means. And she kept reaching down to pet and smooth the fuzzy material. She glared at me with an intensity of confusion. I kept bathing and stared back at her. I didn't know what else to do, so I continued standing there, soaking wet under the flowing shower head, and naked as a newborn bird, she bent down one last time to pet her slippers, and off she went, fading away with each step. This was a daily occurrence, and I was getting really drained. Then my husband told me the condo community was filled with elderly residents, and it was an area homeless transients felt safe. Lucky me. Transients, the homeless, planes flying directly overhead, the trolley and the trains going by. It was no wonder I was feeling so odd. This triangle area, kind of like a Bermuda Triangle, only worse. I was drowning in a tidal wave of supernatural activity. I've been attacked by entities still clinging to their mental illness they suffered in life. One wild-eyed woman followed me around the condo and hauled off and hit me in the face. It was very faint, not like a full hit. Luckily, she lost interest in me after that when another entity was wandering through the middle of the living room. This next ghost appeared to be a middle-aged lady, well-dressed, but not speaking. She acted like she was supposed to be there. And she sat down on the edge of the leather couch. Our TV was showing a soap, and she sat down to watch a bit. She smoothed her skirt with a well-manicured hand and faded out of sight. I've been bit on the behind by a lecherous old man, deceased, of course, scratched down both arms, slapped, pushed, and pinched. Funny thing is, I'm not afraid of these traveling ghosts. I just limit my time in the condo, and when I go back for a visit, it's hard to relax in an environment like that, but I'm not there that much, so I guess I can handle it. In conclusion, no matter where you go, there will always be dead zones like this. As a sensitive, I kind of got thrown into the fire, but I will survive, scars and all. That's got to be an unbelievable kind of experience to have. I really am envious of that. I think that would be pretty remarkable to see all those things going on. It would, I don't know. I don't know why I find that so fascinating, but I really do. I think it would be really neat. I mean, I guess, I sometimes get feelings of things being around, but never like like this, like watching people doing things and being in their, I don't know, being in their routines, whatever the hell they are. So I don't know. I just find it very compelling, but that's got to be also a torment, I suppose, if indeed you get harassed all the time. But I would think that this person could probably just say that's enough, back off, and create a boundary of some kind. It doesn't seem like this person has done that ever, though. They've not created any boundary. They're just wandering through all these, deceased people and having a hell of a time with it. But it seems to me, having talked with so many psychics, it's like they get to a point where they establish their boundaries, and generally, if they do that, they don't have nearly as much of this kind of stuff. But I don't know. I'm on the outside looking in. I don't really understand it all, but I find it very interesting. Very, very interesting. All right, let's go to the next one because we got more. We always got more here on the Paranormal Portal, at least for now. I don't think I'm anywhere near running out of material for you guys yet, so that's a good thing. Let's see. This one's not too long. This is pretty short, and it's coming out of California. It's another sleep paralysis. I'm getting tired of sleep paralysis stories. I really am. And it's not because I don't think it's a fascinating paranormal event, but it's just another sleep paralysis. They're all the same for the most part. Small variations, but the same thing. I couldn't move. I didn't know what to do. I've experienced myself. I mean, I know what it feels like, and it's it's everybody having the same experience. It's horrible. You want it over, and somehow you get out of it, and then it's done. It may last for a night or two. It may last for years. It may be, it's just the same thing. And I don't know. I'd love to know somebody figured that out. And yeah, I don't know. It just probably will never happen though. But anyway, it's from California again. I had a strange case of sleep paralysis today. I know what the symptoms are and I know when it is happening to me, but something was very different about today's experience. I was lying down on my stomach in my bed and I felt my body being filled with a buzzing static. Since I couldn't move, I was just laying still, just wait to see if I could wake up eventually. Behind me, I could just barely see a very bright light in the window, but I couldn't turn around to look at it. And I thought that maybe it was there to help me, but then it dimmed. At that point, I felt a vibration in my head and a feeling of fear. I remember asking God to have mercy, and I'm not a religious person, but to no avail. At this point, the static sensation is very intense, but then I hear a child's voice say a word. Here we go again with the kids. This is kind of an interesting night because two of these sleep paralysis things have a child's voice attached to it. I hear it again, but I don't know what he or she said. Then I feel like something is cutting into the back of my head. Although it does not hurt, I hear something that sounds like a saw, and I feel the buzzing in the back of my head. And then out of the static, a voice tells me, "You're going to die, Annie." I've had sleep paralysis many times before, but usually I do not see or hear anything, which is why I've learned to not be scared, even if I feel a presence. This is the first time I have ever heard anything talk to me, and it knows my name nonetheless. I feel like something is telling me that I'm going to die is very threatening. This is different than a dream. This is a state of mind that is awake while the body is asleep, leaving oneself vulnerable to often terrifying visions and sensations. If anyone has had sleep paralysis, maybe you can help me understand this. That is different, but I don't know. I'm not sure what happened to Annie in these situations, but hopefully she didn't die. I don't know. That's pretty terrifying. We're going to go to the next one, ladies and gentlemen. This one is back to California. Starts off, I have to be honest with you. At the present time, I'm still not really sure what is going on in my home. I hope some of you will be able to have a better understanding and are able to give me your feedback because I could sure use it. On July 2nd, 2007, my brother passed away, and it was a very difficult time for my family and myself. My brother was everything to me, and we were very close. About a month after my brother's passing, strange things started occurring in our home. One night, my oldest daughter woke me up. It was about 2 or 3 a.m., and she was very scared, and she said that she could hear something walking in our home. We have hardwood floors throughout our house, and I went to the living room with her, and we both sat on the couch, and sure enough, I could hear footsteps in our hallway. It went in our kitchen, and when it entered our dining room, a chair moved as if someone was sitting down. And then it went back to the kitchen. It then went back to the kitchen and back down the hallway again. It was very frightening for both of us. We also would hear a voice calling out our names, and it sounded just like my brother. Another time, my husband and I were sleeping, and all of a sudden, my bedroom door flew open, and we both heard someone scream my name. The voice sounded kind of distressed. I did get up and check on things, and at the time it happened, my daughter was in the shower. We've even had the dishes move, and they actually started shaking. My kids heard it first, and that's when they called me into the kitchen, and this happened during the day. My oldest daughter was in the bathroom one night, and all of us were gone, and she was by herself, and she called me crying, and she said she heard a voice call her name, and it said, "I know you can hear me," and she said it sounded like her uncle. I have a lot of other things happen, but I think I'll stop for now. We'll post another story later. Yikes. Well, that's one of those unfinished business things, I suppose. That's got to be horrible. I don't understand. You see, in situations like that, you'd think, is there nobody that helps these these souls out if they're in that stuck place and they don't know what the hell to do? You'd think that if we do have guides and guardians, and I believe we do, why don't they step in those moments and say, come on, you're done. Let's get you back over here or something. But maybe they do, and these people just ignore them and say, no, I'm not done, and so maybe they refuse. Again, just me thinking out loud, but it's very peculiar, very tragic though. I think that would be horribly tragic, but we don't know anything like how did the brother die? We don't know. Was it a very was it a murder? Was it a car accident? Was it a disease? What could have happened that made him feel so cut short like that? All right, so this one is coming from Hawaii. That's kind of nice. I like these Hawaii stories. Hawaii stories are wonderful. I've been there. I liked Hawaii a lot. I didn't have any spiritual experiences there though. Nothing metaphysical at all. As a matter of fact, other than I will say, when we first got there, we were traveling with another couple and their small child, and when we got there, it was dark, and went to the beach of the resort we were staying at, and we're just standing there by the ocean, and we just got there. I mean, we just got there and just walked out by the ocean. The waves are hitting the shore, and this child is like 1.5, less than 2 years old, or maybe just one. Maybe she was that small. I'm trying to remember for sure, but she suddenly looked up at the sky, and she put her arms out like she wanted someone to pick her up, and it was just really strange. Like she saw someone there or something there in the sky, at least taller than us, maybe floating above us, maybe, I don't know. It's hard to understand. But she looked up into the sky. She was being held by her father at the time. And she looked up at the sky and put her arms up like she wanted to be lifted. And it was like, wow, what is she seeing? What is going on? And then as quickly as it started, it was done. And she just, was distracted away from that. So no visual anomaly for the rest of us, but that it seems like that little child saw something in the sky right there at the shore. And I like to think maybe it was the spirit of the islands welcoming us, or and she felt that warmth and that love. I don't know. It's hard to know for sure, but it was a really bizarre experience, but beautiful at the same time. It wasn't terrifying or scary. So the next one, again, is Hawaii. So let's get into this one. It says, about a couple of weeks ago at school, our science club was having a beginning of the year overnighter. I was really looking forward to it because I've heard so many rumors that Moana Lua. All right, I think I got it. Moana Lua. Sorry. Moana Lua High School was haunted. We went bowling until about 12:30, and then we came back and it was about 1 in the morning. The chaperone teachers said that we could go walking about the school at night as long as we stayed in groups. My friend Sarah and I loved the idea, so we set off dragging some friends along with us. While we were walking around, I tried to remember everything, and I heard about this school, and I thought I saw shadows or something moving in the corner of my eye, but I just dismissed it as just an illusion. So we kept on walking to the lower half of the school, and we realized that the lights in the boys' locker room were still on. We went downstairs wondering who could still be there, but of course, the door was locked. However, we went to the other side of the building and overlooked our football field, and the valley there was an exit wide open. We were all excited and hyped, so we ran in without really thinking, and upon walking in, the atmosphere felt really weird. One of my friends who was really excited to go stayed behind, saying she couldn't go in there. Or he couldn't go in there, rather, sorry. We left him outside, and as we continued to go in the locker room, we started to notice a noise in the background that wasn't there before. It was the sound of water dripping, and it was getting louder and louder. Well, we all thought this was some trippy joke, and maybe someone from the other group was snooping around the locker room, and we found out we were there and tried to scare us. To make sure we spread out, checked every corner of the locker room, including the shower, and there was nobody there. Still, the sound continued, so my friend turned it off. Okay. We turned around to leave, and it started dripping again. I can't remember who it was, but one of my friends screamed. There was a pounding on the door, so we got the hell out of there as fast as we could. And when I got home much later that morning, I wanted to see if there was anything in that locker room, and when I looked up Mauna Lua High School as a haunted site, it said things like ghost in the cafeteria or near a hayu. A hayu is a burial site. And it also mentioned something about the boys' locker room. A lot of sites said that there was a little boy in the locker room, and often you hear him crying in the showers. Crying or in the showers would turn on. The phy ed teachers would leave locker room lights on at night so the little boy wouldn't be afraid. When I thought of the little boy, I felt sorry for him being there and being so afraid. And when I think about him now, I feel bad. I wonder how he's been or how lonely it must have been staying there all this time. I know it's not a scary story, but I wanted to share my experiences with you. That is creepy. I don't know. Again, with the little kid spirits, man, I don't know what to think about that. That's just, it just really strikes me as odd. Where's the angels? Where's the beings of light and that are, should be coming to pick that child up and bring them home? Where's the child's parents when they passed? I don't know. I know if my kid had died somewhere, and God forbid, I mean, that's the worst obvious thing, obviously the worst thing for any parent to consider, but just for the sake of the dialogue, if I had a child that passed somewhere, after I passed, the first thing I would do is go to that place and make sure that my child wasn't there. I mean, that just seems horrible. Horrible that those little babies are just suffering alone. Ugh. All right. That's why I'm a big advocate of, psychics and other talented people who work on transitioning spirits, because that's just no way to live. It's just no way to live. It can't be. All right, here we go. We're going to Missouri now. July 23rd, 2008. This one happened when I went to a place in Missouri. No, I don't live there, and this was on vacation, called the Lemp Mansion. Oh, that's a really famous mansion. The brewery, Lemp Beer. If you haven't heard of the Lemp Mansion, then you need to do a bit of Googling. Anyways, I was visiting my older sister when she brought me to tour the place. This tour was filled with some hilarity, but mainly I just wanted to share the personal experiences I had. In order to do this, I'll have to give you a little bit of background. We went into the mansion, and immediately I noticed that there was so much energy in the building that my hair started to stand on end. This place was at one point a boarding house, and a rather shabby one too. And there were tons of deaths that took place in the building, supposedly from cats and dogs to former tenants to even members of the original Lemp family. Yeah, the Lemp family is tragic. A lot of tragedy in the Lemp family. Our tour guide only wanted to talk about Billy Lemp, but nevertheless, between all of that droning on about her dead love, we branded it love because it was sort of that thing where she talked about that person all the time, but completely denied feelings for them. Billy, she got some interesting information in. One thing that she didn't mention very much, though, was that of a little baby, the illegitimate son of Billy Lemp, who had been popularly named Zeke, Zeik. I guess that's pronounced Zeke. I didn't believe the baby's name was Zeke, but apparently Betsy did. Zeke was not only a bastard child, but he had Down syndrome, and during the time period in which the Lemp family lived, I believe it was mid to late 1800s, Down syndrome was just unacceptable, and people with it were widely discriminated against. We know now that disabilities are acceptable and natural, but then again, at the time, it was practically illegal. A shame to the whole family. So the baby boy was the son of Billy Lemp and one of the maidservants. Billy was a player and had a disability, and he was locked in the attic and lived there about 8 years until he finally died. Now, I'll give you details on this at the end of the story because the timing in which I learned these facts is absolutely crucial. We were nearing the end of the tour when we went up to the attic rooms, the two smallest rooms in the mansion. We did what Betsy called a dark room session. Betsy explained how said dark room was supposed to work. She turned out all the lights, and everyone tries to strain their eyes as much as possible to see if they can see a specter or phantom or shadow or mist, or only the third of which is common. The mist, I guess. But what happened was we went to one of the attic rooms, supposedly the most haunted of the two. I guess I should say now that it was about 9 o'clock, and turned out all the lights in the room except for a radio clock, which silly Betsy joked about, although that was helpful because some idiot was liable to shout, "I see a blinking red light," and think there's a ghost in there. And she said that the lamp child, Zeke, sometimes appeared to tender, kind-hearted women. I resent that statement. I believe she meant to say people. Okay. It's not a gender issue. Who cares? So knowing that, we were all content to turn out the lights, and now there was some weird stuff going on. A lot of people were pointing some BS out, but that's not what interested me. In the door frame, I, as well as multiple other people, saw a feminine shadow pass dressed in a long dress. Little tiny orbs of light were circling her, and as soon as someone pointed her out, she jumped out of the doorway until everyone stopped paying attention to her. I could see the frame get lighter and darker as she did so. That alone was not only what interested me the most, it was the feeling, the influence I felt was by far the strangest phenomena. Within 10 to 20 seconds of the light going out, my legs became increasingly weak. They were shaky and jelly-like, almost as though someone was repeatedly kicking me in the back of the knee, causing it to collapse just enough not to bring me to my knees, but make it hard to stand. I found my back bending over like I was being pulled down towards the floor, and I looked very much like a monkey. My stepsister actually laughed at me when we left the room, and I assure you these feelings were not of my own. I walked in straight-legged and strong, and I walked out the same way. In fact, as soon as Betsy said, "All right, let's turn on the lights," the impression dissipated. This is quite long, sorry. Afterwards, we went downstairs, and everyone was given a pair of dowsing rods to use around the bottom floor of the mansion. I have to say the results were rather interesting, although everyone wanted to talk of Billy, of course. However, chose an old man who was frequently seen sitting in the back corner of the dining room. I know it sounds stupid, but the dowsing rods really worked. Even if I concentrated on one answer, they still pointed the opposite way. Very crazy stuff, and quite a funny old man. Finally, when we left the mansion bed and breakfast, I told my sister what really happened in the dark room. She was quite surprised and told me she actually saw the room where the lamp child lived. She had been into the mansion in an overnight ghost investigation the previous summer, and one of the carpenters who were working on the remodeling showed her the room in the attic where people usually weren't allowed. She said the room in which he lived out his short life was so small that he couldn't stand up all the way and he could barely walk. So he was hunched over like a monkey all his life, thus earning him nicknames like Monkey Face. Yeah, there was a window in the small room, according to my sister, and it overlooked a relatively busy street in St. Louis. Children would see him looking down from his tiny home and call him rude names, and she told me that she could even see ruts where he had walked back and forth for so many years. I attributed this information to my experience. All of the information shook me pretty hard. So that's my biggest experience. It was definitely weird, but not scary. I was at peace, just weak during those 10 minutes in the dark room. If anyone has any questions or commentary, I'd love to hear it. I don't think I did, but but if I left something out, then I don't want to leave it out for good. That's an interesting story. I suppose that's part of the closure, right? If somebody lived in a horrible, deplorable conditions like that. Maybe that's part of the way to communicate their experience, to duplicate or mimic those physical sensations. Dowsers are us, Duke says. Well, we got more here on the portal. I got more for you, ladies and gentlemen, because that's how I roll. I roll deep. I roll deep. Not even sure what that means. It just sounded funny to me, so I said it. The next one's coming from North Carolina. And it says, oh, this one might be pretty dark. It's not too long, though. It's about demons, possessions, and exorcisms. Ooh. All right, let's see what's going on. I have posted before about being sensitive to spirits, and this incident happened when I was probably about 7 years old. My mom's stepmother had children who were only a few years older than myself, and I used to stay over there a lot during the summer. They had just moved to an old farmhouse, and the girls were using the front room as their bedroom, and I think then that it was supposed to have been a living room, and the house had been added on to several times. My aunts, weird to call them that since we were so close in age, had been telling me ghost stories and were trying to scare me by telling me that someone had been killed in the house. All the good stuff kids do to each other, right? They even had gotten a candle and were trying to convince me to help them perform a seance so they could talk to the person who was in the house. Well, of course, I got scared and wouldn't sit with them, but watched while they tried to talk to the ghost. After a while, they gave up and we went on to do other things. And later that night, we finally went to bed, and I insisted on sleeping in between my aunts in their bed because they had told me that if I slept on the edge and if my hand or foot hung over the side of the bed, the devil would get me and drag me to hell. Jesus. Wow. I was very impressionable. I still won't sleep with my hands or feet hanging over the side of the bed, and I'm 32 years old now. During the night, I woke up because the blankets were being pulled off my legs. I looked at the foot of the bed. There was a dark figure standing there. It still gives me cold chills to think about it. I was convinced it was the devil and that he was waiting for one of us to put our foot off the bed. Well, I was too scared to even move. I just shut my eyes and eventually shivered myself back to sleep. I refused to sleep in that room again, and I stayed in their mom's room after that when I spent the night. Eventually, the girls switched rooms with their mom, and I told them later when they were older what had happened to me that night, and they admitted that they had seen things in that room also and had to convince their mom to switch rooms with them. The poor mom. These kids are summoning spirits, and Mom, we need a new room. That's horrible. Horrible little brats. All right. I don't know. Kids are kids, and they don't understand. They just don't understand. That's nearly worse than Ouija boards. My God. Little kids doing seances. Eesh. All right. We're going to go to Hawaii again. My God. I've never seen so many stories from Hawaii, but this one's really long. I don't know. What do we got for time? I got to look at the time, ladies and gentlemen, because this is a scheduled show. We don't have enough time for this big of a story. I don't think. Yeah, we can probably do it. I'll do this story. It's pretty big though, but because I love you guys, I'll give you the whole deal here. It says Port Allen is a 12-minute drive away from my house, and it's one of the few places that I can drive and take my Chihuahua Terrier mixed dog. After all, she's just under 11 pounds, and an encounter with a large unleashed dog is just not a good idea. The harbor includes a large cove overlooking an area they call Shark Bay. Ominous title, but true. The sharks are attracted to this big harbor because all the fishing that goes on, and any given day there are 10 to 12 fishermen with 3 or 4 poles jutting out and over the high cliffs. I drive past them all the time and head back to an area on the outskirts of the point. I had heard the rumors about the ghostly warriors, but I wasn't worried. This was probably my 12th visit to the location, And as a sensitive, I hadn't seen them yet. This section I chose to go this day was located a bit further than my usual stops. The pale blue of the ocean was intense, and I was looking forward to climbing in and out of the lava rock formations. No sandy beach here. Lava rock separated the ocean from the land, and driving isn't easy in this area because of all the rocks, and there isn't a road, and you definitely do some off-roading through some pretty crazy dips. Yeah, it's dips. Okay. My dog, who was named Faith, was bouncing and whining in the passenger seat. She wanted out in a bad way, and it made me smile to see her cute little doggy grin. I wasn't the only one who was ready for a walk. The day was bright and sunny, and the sound of the sea is music to my ears. Carefully maneuvering the truck between a couple of large boulders, I parked the car. Faith was really going crazy by this point, so I opened the doors and let her out of the car. Without a second look at me, she bounded out to the pathway covered in broken coral. I unlatched my seatbelt and stepped out of the truck. The trade winds hit me full force, and I leaned into the warm caresses. The sun, the trade winds, I couldn't have been a more perfect day. I looked around and realized the dog and I were all alone. No fisherman here. Grabbing a baseball hat from inside the truck, I slammed the truck doors, locked it up, and headed off to find the dog. No doubt she was sniffing around the tide pools. The only problem with seeing her was due to the fact that she blended in with the black lava rock so well. "Faith," I called out. I spotted her little coconut-shaped head when it popped up at the sound of her name, and she was in an area never occupied by the fishermen, and I wasn't sure why, but the answers would be apparent, and soon. Excuse me. Walking along, I took in the sights and sounds and the feel of white coral crunching underfoot, and it was a really pleasant, comforting sound. It made me feel like I was one with the land, the air, and the sea. I came to a section of white coral that was blinding. The sun had bleached it to the whitest of whites, and I sat down in the middle of it, and it just felt different. As soon as I wiggled myself into a comfortable position on the polished coral, I knew what was different about the place. The sounds of the sea, the trade winds, it seemed like everything had drifted away. The sounds were soft here, almost muted is about the only way to describe it. Puzzled, I wondered what this meant, but I didn't have to wait long. My dog was whining at me from her stance on the lava rock, and she wanted me to come up. Or she wanted to come to me, but I could see she was resisting. Well, this couldn't be good, I thought to myself, and this is when the first stone hit me in the back. Stunned, I scrambled to my feet, and while I was turning to face whoever had thrown the first stone, a second stone caught me on my shoulder. "Ow," I said out loud. My back and now my shoulder were stinging where the stones had landed, and I could feel the welts starting to form. When I was fully turned around and facing my attackers, I was shocked to see a group of 5 men. They were ethereal white, and the brush and landscape were visible through their bodies. I didn't know what to expect, so I stood there and stared at them. And they stared back with an intensity that made me a little nervous. "Hey, Mid-South Sasquatch, good to see you." Quickly, I took in their attire, which was very little. They were tattooed from head to toe, and they held up some scary-looking spears. Their skin was brown and shiny, and I couldn't tell if they wore clothing over their lower body at this mid-level section of their ghostly form. It was lost to me. I could see markings all over their arms and legs, but it's like they couldn't fully manifest their whole form. I didn't feel threatened by them, and I was pretty sure the stone throwing was a warning. They didn't say a word, but started to back away. With each step, they faded away. Within 5 steps or so, they were completely gone. I looked around for them, but there were no signs that they were still watching me. My little dog was literally bouncing up and down on the rocks. Her shrill barking was nearly frantic. It was the first time I noticed she had been barking. When the warriors were standing behind me, I hadn't heard another sound around me. No sounds of the sea, no trade winds whistling through the brush, nothing. It surprised me, but I walked towards the dog, who was standing on the outskirts of this white coral circle. The sounds grew louder and became normal sounds. I picked up the dog and comforted her, and she looked back at me with relief on her little face. Holding her in my arms, I glanced back at the area I had my encounter, and it looked different than the surrounding landscape, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Turning my back on this enigma, I headed to the truck. I was 2 steps into leaving when an image filled my mind. As a sensitive, I closed my eyes and watched the pictures tell its story. I could see carved boats as they moved in smooth formation along the coastline. 4 boats were filled with men, like the men who had stood before me. Flash forward to another scene. The men were now on the land, and some sort of ritual facing the sea was taking place. I could hear baritone voices singing. The vibrato filling the air was beautiful and eerie to hear. It was happening so fast, I was having trouble taking it all in. The last thing I was shown, they were back in their boats and paddling away from the land, and as the scene ended, I opened my eyes and I was touched that they chose to show me this. It was time to get some answers, but there wasn't anything in the local history of the area. Later, I asked some of the local fishermen about the area surrounded by white coral, and I was told it was a sacred spot. Finally, some answers. No one fishes there because it's bad luck to do so. The ritual I saw, it was intended to honor the gods of these long ago warriors before hunts or fishing. In the future, I will respect the old ones, as they are called. By the way, I had bruised reminders for almost 2 weeks. Ooh, that's pretty intense. Great story. Great experience. Do these sacred spots, do they hold a memory of their own, or are there spirits that guard them? I think probably, yeah. I think there are, and they're sacred for a reason. We just have forgotten. We're so westernized and so digital and modern. We've lost this connection, these sacred connections. So I love stories like that remind us that they're there. And we just need to find those places again, because nobody remembers anymore. Nobody remembers where those sacred places are, or most of them. I'm sure every place has sacred places. I'm sure that you don't have to travel to Stonehenge to find something sacred. You don't have to travel to, across the world. There's probably one right in your neighborhood of that some of the local people would revere back in the ancient days. There's probably a place like that right near you. We just, have to remember those and find them. And I don't know. I'm not encouraging people to, go try to placate old gods or anything like that. But I think there's a reason those places are sacred. And it's probably because they are convergences of ley lines. They're high energy places. They're maybe places to cleanse, to get rid of the world, the stress, the pain, the anxieties, and the things that we carry, So those sacred spots don't have to be about religion. They can just be about release and renewing, and revere them in your own way. But I'm sure that they're everywhere. So if you find one, I used to have one. I used to have one when I was younger, and I don't know that it was sacred, but it was sacred to me. It was this beautiful place. I used to go into the woods a lot as a child in the area that I grew up, and we were buttoned right up to a state forest preserve area. And it wasn't really like enormous, not like miles and miles and miles of, well, it was miles and miles and miles of forest in one direction and the other, but not so much deep. But there was quite a bit of forest around there, and it was really beautiful. And there was one spot where I found in the forest, and the sun would come right through the trees. There was like this natural opening in the canopy of these old trees, and it would hit these limestone boulders that were in a way, and it really, honest to God, looked like a natural altar. And it was covered with the softest of moss. And I would go up in these woods, and I would sit there, and just, in my teen years, early teen years when I was a kid, we lived out away from like all of the town stuff. We lived very rurally, so, we were kind of left to our own devices as far as how to entertain ourselves. And I used to find a lot of entertainment just hanging out in the woods. But this one place was so special, and it was always just a beautiful place. I love to go sit there and just feel it. And then they ended up logging that area in my later teen years, and they destroyed it. They destroyed that sacred place. It was gone. And following that, I made several attempts to go up into those same woods and try to find the place that I had found hundreds of times before, but I could never find it. It was like the place was gone. I don't know how to explain it. I can't even find the rocks that had made that natural formation. I don't know. And I'm not trying to suggest that it's like disappeared, but it changed so much that, because they bulldozed a road through this old forest too. So they probably bulldozed that place. And so the place that I had come to love was just gone. So anyway, just my 2 cents. Take it or leave it, but just some thoughts on the subject. But I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for being here. I enjoyed bringing you the show. And I guess we made it to the full hour today. So a little bonus for you guys tonight. But tomorrow's the Friday show. So I hope you guys will tune in with me. And we'll go through 2 hours of the portal tomorrow night. I will look forward to seeing you there right here on YouTube or on TFR Live, whichever place you prefer to watch the shows. But it'll be following Mr. Kev Baker and Freaky Friday. I'll be following them if you're checking us out on TFR. But that's it for tonight. I love you guys. Yeah, tomorrow, Friday shows. Friday and Saturday and Wednesday are all 2-hour shows. Every other show during the week is 1 hour. So Wednesday, Friday, Saturday are 2 hours. Every other show is 1 hour. And Wednesday, Friday, Saturday are normal shows. These are the night terrors. The 1 hour shows are night terrors. Used to be called bedtime stories from beyond, but due to the COPA laws and the uncertainty of that, I renamed them all night terrors. Because I don't want anybody confusing my shows for kid shows. So anyway, love you guys. Hope you guys have a great night. Thanks so much for being here. Again, check out the podcast on Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Google Play, however you find them. But find them and subscribe if you would. And subscribe to our stream right here. Subscribe to the Paranormal Portal and like the streams if you would. Share them if you like the shows. Share them on your social media to spread the word. And we've got a really pretty respectable podcasting audience, but our YouTube audience is quite a bit smaller. So hoping we can grow this pretty respectably too. Not that I'm ashamed of it in any way. I love the fact that we've, broken 5,000 and are almost halfway to 6,000, but got to go onwards and upwards, ladies and gentlemen. But I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day and remember to laugh as much as you can. And I'll be back tomorrow night for our Friday 2-hour show right here on YouTube. So we'll see you guys then. Good night. Love you all and sweet dreams.